Welcome to the newest episode of In Your 20s podcast, where you become smarter by listening to the smartest people in their 20s. I'm Aditya, and in today's episode, we talked about how exactly to start freelancing in 2023. What's the best way to connect with cool people on the internet? How you can travel for almost free, and why VCs could be considered as futurists, and much more interesting conversation. Join me in welcoming Dewasis Mukhia, founding member at Brown Rice Capital and experienced in Web3 marketing, content, and business development. So do give it a thumbs up if you like the video, and I will send you momos. So let's get started. Hi Devasis, welcome to the podcast. How's your day going?
Hey, first of all, thanks Aditya for having me. And I would say my day has been pretty good, not very exciting because I
Right,
couldn't get a lot of work done. But regardless, I still have a lot of backlog. And
right.
yeah, it's been going pretty fine, I guess. I would say it's going fine.
Yeah, very happy, very thankful for you to just join in and give your time to this podcast. Right.
No worries.
So let's start with. I was going through your the first post that you made on LinkedIn, and then it was. I think it was related to your personal development during that COVID 2021. Um,
Yeah,
it was related to, I think, the types of book you started reading, doing workout, and just getting yourself, getting to be a better version of yourself. So
yeah.
let's jump into like what was that phase of starting out.
Sure thing. Yeah, basically, I think the time of COVID was like a great time for everyone else, right? It was a great time for like self reflection, a great time to start with any kind of hobbies, to learn something, to to start off with side hustles or things like that, right? And even for me, I think COVID was such a time, and I started off. Wasn't someone who used to read a lot of books, right? But I basically got into reading mostly, like I would say, non-fiction when I like was in my hostel in my 11th and 12th, and after that, COVID happened, and then I just started delving deeper into non-fiction books and reading different kind of books, and basically it broadened my horizons, right? And so I think that was something that I started off with, and delving deeper into books. And I also started actually learning different skills. Like I I thought marketing would be something that I would like, right? Because I was interested in psychology, and like marketing is basically psychology, like applied psychology, right? To some
Right,
extent. To me, that was something that I would say intrigued me, and I started off learning marketing, the fundamentals of marketing from a course from Google, and that was how I initially started off. I was active on Twitter, and I then got into LinkedIn as well. Started reading about different people, especially got like really influenced by people like Harish from Blue Learn and Ishan Sharma, and like basically got into this whole side hustle thing, and like trying to get
right,
internships. And I think that was the start of everything. I would say COVID was a great, let's say, uh, inflection point for everyone, including me. So yeah.
right. Like personal wise, personally, a lot of us would definitely agree with that. That COVID phase was definitely a good time to just upskill and know more about yourself. Mm,
Yep. 100%.
Coming to there's another one post. So you started posting continuously, right? Like consistently, either related to marketing or the psychology aspect, or what you had learned through that particular course or the type of books that you're reading.
Yep.
And so, and what I understood from that was, um, as of nowadays it is like turned as proof of work, but I think 2 years before this, proof of work concept was not there. But
Yeah.
so how did you like start with, um, like what was going into your mind by just sharing? Because most of us are like, if I learn something, then I will use it for myself and I'll try not to tell the other person, because that will increase the competition. So how was that?
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I mean, sometimes I feel that as of now as well. But I think when you start to, like slowly get exposed to how people think, especially people like I mentioned, Harish had a great influence on me, and basically I started to learn that, instead of competing you can decide on collaborating, right? I heard a very great quote which went like, if you see someone smarter than yourself, try to actually collaborate with them and try to make them your friend instead of competing with them, right?
Mm,
And I think with the whole sharing your knowledge thing, I think that was uh, it's kind of funny because that was a phase when even I was starting to get into, like, personal branding, and I wanted to basically have a lot of followers on my LinkedIn. And
right.
right now I think like there's this whole journey of like when people get into this whole side hustle thing, they
Hmm.
start off like they want to grow their personal brand, and then, like, they they have they struggle with it, and then they're like, okay, I don't care about the personal brand, I just want to be authentic.
Right.
I just feel that that's for me. uh, so that was, I mean, even now I want to make a personal brand, but I don't want to get into that whole creating a personal brand which just talks about, like, let's say marketing or any field that you are in. I feel that like sharing your journey is also part of a personal branding, because I think that also helps you connect with your audience, right? So
Right.
I think that was the reason why I shared a lot of the things that I was doing right then. Right now,
Yeah.
I've not been able to do it a lot because of
Right.
work and because I'm very bad at management. So content is the least of my priority as of now. But yeah,
Right.
that's how I started off.
Yeah. um I was going through that, even as you mentioned ki, initially it was like everyone wants to grow their personal brand, so they are pushing out content and just trying to um, get followers and stuff. And like comparing with Dewasis as of now and Dewasis 2 years ago, I can figure out from your tweet post and all that. So initially I think you started off just again posting off about what you learned, and um, your learnings, your experiences with what you have learned, and later on you started focusing more on what other people are posting, especially the insightful tweets and all. And as of now, you are mostly either posting a very valuable or informative type of content, or it's something related that you you want some help, and you're just asking out publicly that, hey, if anyone is knows that xyz person, would love to like connect with that person. So nowadays you have transitioned into just putting out, or just focusing on the valuable things. So why do you think that shift happened again, right? From posting continuously to just posting things which matters to you only?
Sure. So, like I mentioned earlier, it was most of it was due to my mismanagement and like me not being able to manage things properly. But apart from that, I would say that like basically how I started off, like mentioned, it was through marketing, right? And right now I'm like I've done design as well. I've done content as well, which falls under marketing. But yeah, so I think right now I'm just exploring mostly. I think I am able to figure out to a lot of to a great extent where my interest would lie. And I think right now what I'm doing with BD and partnerships, mostly partnerships, is something that I am interested in because I feel I'm good at make like building relationships, and I enjoy doing that. I enjoy talking to people, even though now I don't get to do that a lot. But earlier I used to like DM a lot of people just to
Mm-hmm.
try to get them on a call and learn more about them.
Right.
So yeah, that was something that like right now I'm doing, which is basically I'm exploring my interests as of now. And I feel like what I just used to post about marketing, I didn't really uh, like I felt that maybe whatever I'm sharing, I don't like it didn't feel authentic to some extent. Like I knew that that was something that I read, and like I'm sharing that, but that wasn't something that I really resonated with or something like that. And I just felt that maybe like this doesn't feel genuine, like doing that. Like instead of that, right, what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to share my journey, like because I
Mm-hmm.
feel that I don't want to build my brand in one particular thing, because I'm not sure if that is something that I would do for the long term, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what I'm trying to do is just I'm trying to figure out stuff and just sharing my lessons that would relate with people. And that too I don't do a lot, especially on Twitter. I'm just consuming stuff, but I try to do that whenever possible. And yeah, I guess that's the answer.
Right. Agree with that. Like last week, I was talking with one person. He worked at he interned at LinkedIn, and then he's currently in Canada doing a research internship. So that guy has so he has a, I think he has 24.7K followers on LinkedIn, and so he posts very rarely. And whenever he posts very insightful type of content, or sharing about his learnings, like actual learnings from his experiences at interning at LinkedIn, or doing multiple hackathons and stuff. So, but what he's told me about this entire build in public thing was that don't just show everything, whatever you know. Um, Keep things private, um, but make sure that while you're keeping those things private, you are developing yourself a lot. Because according to him, what he said was, um, most people will just scroll through your content. um, so why are you just wasting your time, wasting their time, um, into like their time in just reading a particular post which they might feel not so insightful. And on top of that, your time will be also wasted when you create and post content and stuff. So ultimately he wanted to say that posting should be done for a very for very insightful ones posts, um, and not just random posts. You're like, you learn something and then you're posting, okay, I learned this. So he what he meant to say was, keep things private, and so that when other person, because I again support that view that when you keep things private a little about yourself, that makes your personality more interesting. So do you feel that if someone is starting from zero right now, they should be caring about this idea that um, they have to keep things private and work on themselves, or just show up everything of whatever they are learning or doing online?
Yeah, I think uh, I would say for someone who's starting off, that definitely makes sense if they don't spend a lot of time doing content, because like just think about it, right? Who'd like to learn about marketing from a beginner who's at zero, right?
Hmm.
Like
Right.
I do agree that like even if you are, let's say, few years into the thing like that you are pursuing, then maybe someone can learn from your journey, right? But for someone who's starting off, I would not really suggest focusing on doing content aggressively. Yeah, they can most probably start off, sharing just uh, few insights that they feel that would resonate with people, because I feel that's a great way to make connections. And I would actually suggest them to, instead of doing content, so I would suggest building relationships. That
Right.
is the best thing I would suggest them, because I feel like a lot of Twitter, like a lot of people that I'm connected to on Twitter, a lot of the followers that I have on Twitter are mostly people that I know. So I think instead of doing like content and focusing a lot on that, I would suggest instead, maybe you can share some learnings like mentioned before, that really resonate with people, and focusing morely on, like, trying to form connections and reaching out to interesting people that you want to reach out to. Like, don't have this inhibition of like, will they reply to my thing or not. Just be really authentic and just reach out to people. A lot of them will actually reply.
Right. Coming to the reach out thing, like, knowing you, I understood that you definitely hustled a lot to just build great connections. And when I mean by great connections, it means like actual great connections you can leverage. Because mostly what happens is people just connect with someone on LinkedIn, they post, "Hi, just saw your post, it was interesting," and then done. And that is just that. But um, you started you started using these platforms, like especially Twitter, to just build up relationships and connections. So how was that? Like, how did you start with connecting? Because um, let's say you saw a post of someone, it was insightful, and you really want to talk with that person. So how did you start approaching them, and what was that something, or what do you think that they felt ki, that you sent them, or you said them, and they said ki, okay, this is interesting, let's hop on a call, and then let's just know each other.
Sure. uh, Actually, it's a funny story. I didn't start off with LinkedIn. I started off with WhatsApp, actually. uh,
Okay.
you know, it's a funny story. Like, I'm sure even that Blue Learn had their WhatsApp community, right? So I
Right.
was part of that community, and I like literally reached out to every single person from the group. I didn't reach out to everyone, but like I reached out to a lot of people from WhatsApp groups, because I thought, like, since, like, when you are part of a community, the chances of the members there being interested in similar things like you is more, right? So I
Hmm.
just reached out to them randomly. Like, that was how I started off. I reached out to them randomly saying, hey, I'm part of the same community as you, and I would love to learn more about you, what you're building, and stuff like that. But slowly I started learning more about what would be a better way to craft your message. And basically I learned about doing research before you send in send a message. So what I did with LinkedIn was, whenever I found someone really interesting, I just reached out to them. Before that, I did some research. I just went through their posts, and then I tried to form some connections between their interests and mine, and
Mm-hmm.
also try to, like, because I was genuinely interested in what they were doing. The research process was more like a fun thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
because like if you are not interested in someone, and like you're just reaching out to them because they have a great follower, I mean they have great brand or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
then the research process would be more, I would say it would not be fun for me. So I
Right.
reached out to mostly people who were really fun and who were building great stuff. And I just learned, like went through their posts and then reached out to them, said I was really genuine when I reached out to them. I uh, told them what I felt about them. I told them like, why exactly I'm reaching out. I just told them that I saw your profile and I love the work you've been doing, and this particular thing that you wrote really resonated with me, and I just reached out to them like that. I guess, like, you need to form some kind of connection, or let's say, uh, have a common ground, right? As to,
Mm-hmm.
like, because that way they would be more inclined to reply to a message, because it would be more like you will be appealing to their emotion rather
Right.
than making it very rational. So that was something that I did. I even included a lot of, I mean, a lot of times when I was reaching out to people who were, let's say, like, I've not mentioned this to a lot of people, but I used to research a lot of about people from our region who are doing great stuff, right? Like basically Nepalis, or let's say people from Northeast who are doing great stuff in startups or something like that. So I mentioned that fact as well, that I'm from Northeast as well, and that forms a connection, right? Or let's
Right.
say I'm from Darjeeling as well. That was how I met, like, one person from Darjeeling. He was working at Stoa as well, and now he's working at Ink 42. And that was how I reached out to him. I just saw his uh, I just saw a post which was about him, like he was trying to get a job, and then I got to see his Notion page, and then I actually saw a picture of the header from the Notion page, and it was Darjeeling, and I thought I had seen this place somewhere, and I just reached out to him saying I didn't do a lot of research then, but since he was from Darjeeling, I was from Darjeeling. That formed a connection, right? So I just reached out to him saying, "Hey, saw you're from the hills as well, and saw you were working at Stoa as well. I have been following Raj and Stoa for a long time and love the work you guys have been doing, and just would love to chat more about where you've been working and stuff like that." And he replied back to me, and we hopped on a call just after that, and it was really it was a really interesting and really genuine conversation. It was a very fun conversation. So yeah,
Right.
that was how I even reach out to people right now. If I find someone interesting, I just dig deep into them and then reach out. So yeah,
Right. So the overall process could be that firstly, if you find someone interesting, just research on them. Secondly,
yeah,
find a common ground so that you can start off or kickstart a conversation. And
yeah.
thirdly, could be that just try try to be more um, what
I would say try to be honest. Like
uh,
if you feel they are really impressive and inspiring, then just tell them that, because people love compliments, right? And like,
right.
don't just fake it. I wouldn't say just
Hmm.
tell them, like tell everyone you reach out to that they are
Yeah.
inspiring. But if you feel that they are inspiring, then just mention that. And like people can feel like it when you are actually complimenting them, or just like saying that they're inspiring, right? Like,
Hmm.
because like when you like feel that someone is really inspiring, then you mention what exactly uh, sets them apart, right? Or let's say sets them as inspiring. So I would suggest just do that, like be really honest with your reach outs and just
Right.
reach out to people. And like I would also suggest be uh, really appreciative of their time. And like
Hmm.
sometimes I think one of the hacks which I used was that, like, if people don't reply, I think follow-ups is also a key
Hmm.
part of it,
Right.
right?
Right.
Because like a lot of people are really busy and they sometimes miss their messages. Even I tend to do that. So follow-up is a great way of reminding them that, hey, I had sent you a message, just check it out. And you can also, like, when I would suggest some tips to be really appreciative of their time is, if they, like, don't reply, just let them know that you can just send a follow-up message saying that, hey, I saw that you didn't get the time to see a message. I know you're super busy, but would really appreciate even 15 minutes of time to chat. And let me know when would be a good time to chat. That
Hmm.
sounds fine, because like you are telling them that you know that they're busy. But so yeah, it just shows that you are really appreciative of their time. And you know that they're busy, and you are asking them when would be a good time to chat, in which case they can let you know that you can reach out to me on a weekend or something like that. So yeah.
Right. Cool. Understood. Um, let's come to the Web3 transition that you made from just learning about marketing in general to focusing specifically to a particular domain. And I think Web3 plus marketing is a very sweet spot. Like as of now, right now it is too much common, very common, but a year ago or even 6 7 months back, it was it was a good place to just start out, and you started off with that very early. And why do you think you wanted to go? I think definitely, I think interest was a thing, but apart from that, what did you find specifically in the this entire Web3 domain that you wanted to try out with marketing and your skills in general?
Yeah. uh, I would say that, like, I was working, not working but interning with web 2 companies earlier. And that was also a time when web 3 as a keyword started popping up a lot on
Hmm.
Twitter.
Right.
uh, and I was also intrigued with the whole concept of web 3, right? It
Mm-hmm.
seemed really interesting because if you think about it, it's the next frontier of the internet, right?
Hmm.
So I was really intrigued by it, and I started off with, like, there's a great community called Product House. So even they started off with their uh, program, which was a cohort. It was a huge cohort with around 30,000 people who attended that session.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I started off with that. I didn't complete the whole course, but it was like a launch pad for me in terms of like getting into Web3, right? And I started off learning about concepts. Like earlier, I just knew about crypto and uh, NFTs, right?
Hmm.
And then I started learning more about DAOs and the blockchain, the like the fundamental principles of Web 3, like decentralization. But yeah, I wasn't aware of what decentralization was. I just knew crypto. I didn't
Right.
even know blockchain. So yeah, things like that. And I would say it wasn't very intentional as to whether, like, I wanted to be in Web 3 marketing because it was like very hyped up, or it was something that a lot of people did. But it
Mm-hmm.
was just that marketing was something that I was doing earlier in Web 2 companies, and Web 3
Right.
seemed really interesting. And I just wanted to explore Web 3 as to, like, where the industry goes, because, like, basically my goal is to be a VC, right? And
Yeah.
like VCs are the one who actually need to map out, not need to, but
Hmm.
they map out the entire, uh, let's say, future, in terms of
Right.
they predict future, right? Because that's
Hmm.
what their jobs are. Like they
Hmm.
try to figure out which could be the big market, which could be the next trend. So for me, I thought that this could be a good learning in terms of uh, like, let's say if Web3 doesn't work, it would still be a good lesson for me in terms of
Hmm.
figuring out how a industry develops and what what would an industry look like if it failed or if it succeeded, right? So that is still the reason why I'm sticking with Web3, and I see a lot of really smart and interesting folks working in Web3, and I just like the vibe of Web3, to be honest. It's really chill, and it's mostly, not mostly, but a lot of people in Web3, if you notice the people working, there are a
Hmm.
lot of them are Gen Z, right? So I
Right.
think that is also part of the reason why I'm sticking with Web3 as of now.
True.
And I think like it's it's an asymmetric bet, right? Like
Hmm.
I basically heard about this concept, which is like something that really sticks with me even now. Like if you, like Naval talks about this a lot, uh, that a lot of growth in your career happens when you take asymmetric bets, whether it be
Hmm.
starting up is like starting up something is a great example of an asymmetric bet, because like the losses you have is very limited, but the upside
Hmm.
you have is huge, right? So
Right.
I think like moving out is also another example of an
True.
asymmetric bet, right? And in a similar way, I think Web3 was something that uh, I thought of as an asymmetric bet, because like even if the whole Web3 domain fails, I wouldn't be facing a lot of losses, right? Because like fundamentally the skills I would gather could be applicable to Web2 as well, right? It
Hmm.
wouldn't change in
Right.
Web2. Like,
Right.
yeah, to some extent it would change, but the fundamentals would be similar, right? So I
Yeah.
just thought Web3 seems really interesting and I could take a bet on Web3. So yeah,
Web3, we there's both perspectives on that. Like, one says Web3 will just fall down later on, but another one is saying that um, it is something like the internet boom that happened, the smartphone and all. But yeah, really interesting domain. um, in between,
yeah,
like you started your conversation related to your interest in VC, and I think initially when I VC, I also even didn't know much about it, but I was introduced to more about VC and how everything is, oh, like as you said, ki, VCs are the actual people who are just mapping out the future. So knowing you led me to know about VC and stuff, and I'm sure most of us might not know about VCs or what are they, what are exactly, but definitely they would have heard a bit about, because like funding alerts and all about startups, they talk about VCs. So would you like to just talk something about VC, how and why your interest specifically? Because um, there are really few people interested in VC, and definitely they are smart people. So anything you want to share about your insights related to
sure thing,
VC?
sure. So VCs are basically venture capitalists. They take bets on entrepreneurs who start up different stuff. Like most of the a lot of the startups that you see, and actually the whole ecosystem in India has developed because of VC funding, right? If you look at Flipkart, Flipkart was backed by Chirati Ventures and great VCs like Tiger Global and Excel and a few other VCs as well, right? And Flipkart was the Flipkart was like an inflection point in the startup ecosystem, because like from Flipkart, then a lot of other startups emerged, right? For example, if you take the example of Udan or CultFit or PhonePe or
Right.
Rapido, and
Yeah.
these kind of startups emerged because of the Flipkart mafia,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically the early employees of Flipkart, right? Because when you grow a company from 0 to 1, you have a lot of learnings, right? You get to know how to grow a company, how to scale a company, and all the intricacies involved with the startup thing. So VCs are basically people who take bets on companies and they invest in companies, and it can be a lot of VCs can invest from the idea stage, wherein you don't even have a product, but you just have the idea. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of VCs don't do it, but like basically, if you a VC can invest in an idea if he thinks that the founders have great backgrounds in terms of their track record, and
Right.
also like figuring out different factors like time is an important factor as to is it a good time to invest or not, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times when like a lot of times an idea could be great, but the timing would not be great. Let me give an example. So if you think about like AWS.
Mm.
AWS is a huge company, right? Amazon is
Right.
a huge company, but AWS is a huge product. Great deal of huge companies use AWS like Netflix, Spotify, and few other companies, right? Not
Right.
few, but a lot of companies.
Lot.
So, before AWS, during the time of the first ever internet browser came out,
Mm-hmm.
which was created by mm, people like Albert Mark and Reason, who is an OG when it comes to the startup and VC world, because he's a very well known entrepreneur, as well as most people know him as a venture capitalist, because he's the one of the founders of Andreessen Horowitz or A16Z, which is one of the biggest investors in
Mm-hmm.
a great deal of companies. But
Right.
right now, mostly Web3 companies, right? A lot of
Mm.
the big brands you see in Web3 are funded by A16Z.
A16Z.
So, yeah. So, basically, he created Netscape after creating Mosaic, right? After he finished creating Mosaic, and then uh, after a while he basically started working on Netscape with
Right.
Ben Horowitz, who's the other co-founder of A16Z, his partner. And that was how but the timing wasn't very good in terms of people didn't want the product at that point of time, because they were mostly focused on uh, getting their services. I mean, they're storing their data on
Mm-hmm.
what do you call it? It was servers, and people didn't feel the need for Netscape at that point of time. And
Right.
after I think 6 months or a year, yeah.
A
So that was also the time when the dot com bubble
dot com
burst.
up.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was the time when the dot com bubble burst, and a lot of internet companies went bankrupt, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so even they had to shut their store. So Netscape, I think, sold off to some other company, or I'm not sure what happened. But yeah, that so basically that wasn't a very good time to build Netscape, right?
Right.
But if you see AWS right now, it's a great company, right? It's a huge company. So that is what I was talking about in terms of timing. Like uh, another great example would be the launch of UPI, right? A great deal of companies actually monetize on that, the whole UPI system. Or let's
Mm.
say a great example would be Geo, the Geo movement, because
Right.
before that, a lot of people didn't have access to the internet, right? Or let's
True.
say access to the internet to a great extent like we have right now, right? So
Yeah.
Geo was something that enabled a lot of especially tech startups to rise up, right? So that is something else that VCs consider when investing. So yeah, and in terms of why I'm interested in VC, because like mentioned, I think VCs are people who work at the forefront of innovation, right? And
True.
I think like if you want to be involved in something great, or let's say like I mentioned asymmetric bet, then I think you need to be at the forefront of innovation. Because like if everyone knows about uh, let's say if everyone knows that something will blow up, then it probably won't be then you probably won't be gaining a lot of upside from it. Like what I meant was basically that in order for you to gain a lot of upside, you need to be among the top uh, percentile of people, right?
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think innovation is something that is like that in terms of uh, not a lot of people may know about web3, right? For example, like we know about web3 because we are like involved in circles like where web3 is discussed.
True.
But if you ask someone who's on Instagram, let's say if you pick someone random for from Instagram and ask them if they know about Web3, then the
Right.
chances of them being on aware of Web3 is really
Mm,
less, right?
really
Because
low. Right.
what I've noticed is like innovations like Web3 or let's say topics like AI will be mostly discussed on forums like Twitter and LinkedIn, right? Twitter
Mm-hmm.
firstly and then LinkedIn. Twitter and Reddit, and then it will
Mm-hmm.
slowly trickle down to LinkedIn and then maybe Instagram, stuff like that.
Right.
So I feel that VCs are someone who are involved in innovation, right? Who are involved at the forefront of innovation. Let's say, think of Chat GPT, right? It was such a breakthrough. It is still is such a breakthrough kind of tech. I mean uh, uh,
Technology.
model behind
Mm.
the model
Model.
behind
Right.
ChatGPT, right? And VCs are the one who quickly figure out if something is very hot in a market, right?
Mm.
So I think that is also the reason why I want to be involved in VC. And apart from that, I feel VCs working in a VC would enable me to work with really smart and ambitious founders as well. So
Right.
that is also the reason why I want to be involved and be working in a VC.
Great. Like, yeah, definitely. Whatever you mentioned related to um, the being in the forefront of the innovations, definitely investors and VCs are into just figuring out that what could be the next thing.
And apart from
Uh,
that,
yeah.
really sorry to cut you in
Right.
between,
No. No. No
but I
worries.
feel apart from that, like I feel that VCs are also really interested. I mean, involved in really exciting projects. For
Mm-hmm.
example, if you think about, like, I really love softwares like Notion, or let's say Cron, or products like that, right? And if you think about it, like most of them are VC funded, right? And
Right.
like they are funded in their early stages as well, and VCs
Yeah.
are the one who get like smell out these kind of products, right? So like I get really excited about such projects as well, and I feel VC is somewhere where I can get to work with a huge a wide array of founders and wide array of such cool and interesting projects.
Mm-hmm. Right. But currently, a lot of the in the market there is this thing that VCs are notorious. VCs
Yep.
take away your growth, or they take away your profit, or there is even that um, people start most of the startup founders are into again in this thing that whether they should get a funding, or they should just bootstrap completely because they have to give their equity, um, and overall the image of an investor or a VC is not really good among peoples who are starting off, because they're very they're not they are mostly in ambiguity that um, whether or not we should go for it, whether we should not go for it, like that. So why do you think that is the case, and is there any better possible thinking, or why we should go forward with VCs and all for our startup?
Sure. So, one thing that I want to clear out is that VCs actually don't just provide you money,
Yeah.
which used to happen earlier when there weren't a lot of competition, right? But
Mm-hmm.
right now, it's not just about who, like, who can give you money,
Mm-hmm.
especially for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
VC is something that you should consider not just for the money that they give you, but for the doors that they can open for you, right?
Mm.
Because like in VCs, there is something called portfolio support, which is like there's an investing part in VC wherein it's mostly related to investments and due diligence, researching about the company and stuff like that. But the other side, which is after the investment, comes wherein the VCs actually support the startup in terms of providing networking. Let's say a startup wants to get clients, and VCs like are connected to let's say people who can be potential clients for startups. So in that way they would be even willing to provide an intro, also help with hiring, which is mostly very important in startups, right? Because like a lot of startups face this problem wherein they get candidates but they don't
Mm-hmm.
get a lot of quality candidates. And I mean, it was crazy. I think it was last year or the year before that, wherein I saw people who were like providing bikes just for referring the right set of developers, right? And that was crazy. I mean, providing bikes just for referring someone, right?
Crazy.
And I think hiring is something that a lot of people face problem with. Even now, I see a lot of people who actually, like help you out. I mean, not help you out, but provide some kind of incentive for you to refer some good candidates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So VCs actually help the startups with that as well. And when it comes to the whole, let's say if a VC is focused a lot on marketing as well, because there are VCs there's a VC called Spring Capital, which
Mm-hmm.
is mostly their forte is marketing. So they can help the startup with marketing as well. So it depends on like I think part of the reason why, like if you want to be bootstrapped, I think one thing you need to remember is that uh, for a bootstrapped company it takes a long time for you to
Right.
reach
Long
the
term
kind of,
game.
yeah, it's a long term game. For example, if you look at Zerodha and if you look at Grow, right, both are billion-dollar companies, but Zerodha started off way earlier and they are bootstrapped. Yeah,
Right.
like the founders have 100% ownership of the company, but they took a lot of time to get where they are right now. Whereas if you take the example of Grow, which is funded, then it
Right.
didn't take a lot of time to reach where
Mm.
Zerodha is, right? So I think that's the, if you want to consider, there are other options as well, because there are grants which you can take, or if you want, like it depends, the kind of ownership that you give away
Yeah.
depends on the kind of investment that you take. For example, there are VCs you can go to, there are accelerators and there are incubators. Like if you are
Mm-hmm.
very early, you can go for incubators, you don't need to necessarily go for VCs. And if you are maybe in your one stage,
Mm-hmm.
then which is basically, when I mean one, I mean 0 to 1 one. So if you are in that stage, then you can go for accelerators. But it depends, like different VCs have different uh, kind of ownerships that they take. And then I think it's the responsibility of the founders as well to be aware about certain clauses. Like
Right.
uh, I'm not sure, because I'm not talking from experience, but from what I've consumed about VC and stuff like that. But a lot of founders aren't. a lot of founders, I guess, weren't aware of different clauses that is involved
Mm-hmm.
in the whole term sheet, right? Which is like the contract that you sign when VCs provide you money. So I think the founders need to be aware about certain clauses, because that, like, a good VC would most probably tell you about it. Tell you which are the important clauses, but I'm not really sure about like if all the VCs would do that. But I think
Mm-hmm.
it's also their responsibility, and it falls on the founders as well to be aware of certain clauses, right? But if you
Right.
just break down in a layman's word, the most important clauses are related to control and the capital, which
Mm-hmm.
is
Yeah.
basically the VCs care for. Others
Mm.
are just like miscellaneous things that they agree upon, but mostly it's just who, like, how will the profits be divided, and like the ownership will be divided, and like what would be their control in terms of, like, when I mean control, I say
Mm-hmm.
will the VCs be taking board positions in the company or not, and
Yeah.
how much say they would have in the company, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
what the VCs care for mostly.
Right. And I think like the better connections that you have with your VCs or any other VC who is, and if you are looking for a funding, then having good relation and understanding that what the what's the actual background of finding a VC is, because why would anyone just pour money into your business just for the sake of your idea or the product that you have? What they are looking for is a return on the investment that you have and that they have made. and
Yeah,
and and this money, what they are talking about is not just a few lakhs, it could be even crores, right? And
yep,
often startup founders just miss into that, and they just think that VCs are too much selfish about their profits and all. But yeah, if we go to the basics, what they want ultimately at the end of the day is a good return of investment.
yeah.
Right.
And one thing you need to know is that VCs actually raise from LPs. So it's not
Mm,
as if it's their own money that they're investing, but it's someone else's money. LPs are
yeah.
basically people like rich families that provide VCs money, or let's say
Mm-hmm.
some kind of wealth fund, or some kind of it can even be a pension fund. Like
Right,
LIC
right.
would be investing in some VC, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to remember that even VCs have a responsibility towards their investors.
Yeah.
So it's not that they are selfish, it's just that even they need to take care of their whole thing,
Mm,
right? Because they need to be providing at least a base
right.
amount of, not a base amount, but they need to be making sure that their investments actually gain ROI. So yeah.
True. True. Right. Let's come to your recent trip to Goa, the Web3 Conf. Um, and for the benefit of the audience, I would want to say that Dewasis went to Goa for free, like completely free of cost, living there, having food, 5 star, enjoying, connecting with people, all for free. And most people think that it is very hard to just travel for free, but I think Devasis has a lot to tell about how exactly he did that. So how did you start with this working at
It's almost for free actually, just to clarify. Almost
almost
free.
totally?
Like few miscellaneous costs were there, but
Right.
yeah, it was almost free.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think how I started off was I knew that there were two biggest, let's say, events in Web3 that happened in India. One of which was Web3 Conf, and the other was ETH India, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ETH India takes place in December, so there
Yeah.
was still a lot of time for it to happen. And I actually wanted to volunteer for ETH India as well. I came to know about I always wanted to go to events like this, but earlier due to financial constraints I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I came to know that like you can volunteer and you can go to the event for free and have food and accommodation will be covered and stuff like that. Especially with events like mostly ETH events, they actually don't they don't cover your costs or something like that, but they compensate for your uh, for the hours that you put in. So it's mostly
Yes.
like you're traveling for free because when you go to an event, there's side events that keep happening, so your food will be covered by that only.
Mm.
And there's also the like some I'm not exactly sure, but in hackathons a lot of spaces don't offer you lavish bedrooms or something like that, but you can basically manage to sleep or stuff like that.
Right.
So yeah, I came to know about web3 conf as well, and I wanted to be part of it. And I didn't know that like they actually covered the cost earlier, but I came to know about it eventually when they rolled out their forms, and I really wanted to be part of the team, and especially given that it was in Goa, right? And I reached out to everyone from the team and said that I wanted to be part of the team,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually bothered them by like I used to follow up every couple of weeks with one particular person. His name was Shiv, and I met him during the event, and he told me that, "Oh, you were the one who used to bother," but in a fun way. Yeah.
Right.
And I used to do that, and he told me that the forms will be out soon and you can apply there. So I
Mm-hmm.
applied and I was selected. Like I think there were around 600 people who applied and 100 people were selected from them, and
Right.
I was part of that. So it was a phase one volunteership wherein it was like a probation kind of thing wherein you need to do a certain number of tasks and
Mm-hmm.
need to do them well in order to go to the next phase, wherein
Right.
they would then cover your cost and accommodation and stuff like that. The phase one volunteers would just be getting the free ticket to the WebConf, but apart from that they wouldn't get any other works.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to get into the phase two volunteership as well, and it was difficult. So I
Right.
became part of phase two volunteership, and yeah, that was how I got into the whole thing. It was my first actual Web3 event, I would say, because the only Web3 event that I attended was the one I organized along with few other friends
Right.
in Siliguri, and yeah, that was which was in college, so it didn't have the vibe of Web3 events
Mm.
that I see on Twitter, right?
Yes.
And Goa was something that I like. I think Web3 Conf was somewhere where I actually experienced what Web3 events look like, right, and feel like. And it
True.
was a pretty great experience, considering it was my first time, doing a solo travel, first time taking a
Mm-hmm.
flight, and first time uh, like going to any other state apart from West Bengal.
Right.
So yeah, that was something that was a great experience in terms of meeting really exciting people, meeting really ambitious and smart people, and
Mm-hmm.
people that you see every day on Twitter, like, but
Yeah.
you just interact with them on like this, right, through
True.
virtual means. And meeting them in person was something that was really fulfilling because it was such an interesting experience because uh, like meeting someone in real life is way different than meeting someone through virtual means,
Absolutely.
right? Because
Yeah.
you can't compensate for that physical presence thing
True.
when it comes to virtual communication. So I got to meet a lot of people, especially a lot of like very well known people on Twitter, like Khushbu Verma from Apprite, and people like Francisco, who I'm not a big fan of, as in since I'm not a developer, so I'm not a huge fan, but I know that he's huge on Twitter. So I got to meet a lot of people like that, and a lot of senior folks from great startups and from great projects, and especially VCs as well. I got to meet GPs who are general partners from uh, places like CoinSwitch Ventures and Graviton and Gravity X. So yeah,
Mhm.
that was interesting.
Right. So definitely you made good use of traveling for almost free and connecting with people. Um,
Yeah,
I remember when I was talking with you, you mentioned something about um, the four zones of. So
yeah.
it was like um, competence. I think it was competence, genius, and excellence. Something, and one I
Incompetence
forgot.
and
Right.
yeah,
So tell
incompetence,
us,
so
tell us something about
excellence.
that.
Yeah, yeah. Even that's something that even I keep thinking about, and uh, I'm interested in, because I feel like when you are working in something and when you are basically exploring different domains, then you go through this phase of whether it's the right thing for me to do or not, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think this concept of four zones can help you to think about it, right? Because like if you are working in something and you are doing great but you don't enjoy it, then maybe it's not a zone of genius, but it's your zone of competence, wherein you are good at doing the work but you may not enjoy the work, and you may not be excellent at that, right? But maybe if you are very good at doing your work that you have chosen for yourself, and you enjoy your work, and maybe you are at the top, let's say 5%, then it may be your zone of genius, right? And
True.
a zone of genius is ideally where you want to be working at, because I think that is something that can be really fulfilling, right? Because
Right.
like if you think about, like there's a concept called Maslow's hierarchy, right? Wherein it's a it's like a pyramid thingy, wherein like things are stacked on the basis of your needs. Let's say the first level of needs would be food, shelter, and clothing, right? And after that, there would be maybe money, and after that, maybe something like self-respect and your image in the society, and after
Mm-hmm.
that, maybe fulfillment and self-actualization, which is basically, uh, are you actually fulfilled with the work you do? Is like does your soul feel that the work you're doing is actually meaningful or not, right? And basically I feel that uh, you can reach the uh, like when you climb up the ladder, let's say right now most of us are students, right? So most
Mm-hmm.
of us have, let's say, food, uh, clothing and shelter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the next phase, which is money. So earning money, and then after that maybe you want to earn some fame, so you do some kind of great work and you get recognition from your people, right? And after that there's the thing of meaningful work, so doing meaningful work. So I think even I want to be at that stage wherein like the work that I do is actually fulfilling and meaningful. So that's the
Right.
reason, that's also the reason why I wanted to that I took interest in the whole four zone of genius, competence, and those zones thing.
Right. Truly. I think like for me, what I think the best and the easiest way is um, if you want to differentiate yourself with someone, then find the first thing is explore whatever things you can, whatever intrigues you. Secondly, after exploring, you'll definitely have an idea that okay, this is a topic which I feel I'm a little more interested about, but I'm not sure that whether this is
Yeah,
something which I'm actually interested about. So ultimately you'll have three or four such topics which will be interesting to you. And what now you can do is um, deep dive into them a bit more and try to relate all these. Let's say you have three skills, as like a very common example could be your experience in marketing, content, and web3. So um, might not be that you are very good at everything or few things, but you definitely have a little more knowledge than a normal person in all these things. So what eventually you get after mixing all these three fields is a good spot where you can just differentiate yourself
Yeah.
and be someone that um, okay, I'm interested. I'm working in the space of web3, and I do marketing and all, but I'm also I also do content and stuff, so I have knowledge related to that. So, and that thing I think makes an interviewer, if, even if you are just talking with someone, it makes your personality more interesting, because
Yep.
again that sets you apart from the other people.
Yeah.
um,
And I think not only in interviews, but it sets you apart in general, right? Like
True.
there are a lot of people in Web3, but what differentiates you from someone
Mm,
uh, like who's doing the same thing as you, right?
right,
Especially
right.
when it comes to someone who's in the same field as you. I think that is the reason why zone of genius helps, because like like I've heard this expression a lot, but like I've heard a lot of people say that work, like the work that I'm doing right now doesn't even feel like work. So just imagine doing something like that. But
Mm,
I like uh, a few founders have told me that it's not exactly the same, wherein like uh, you can't have that kind of work wherein you don't need to do anything boring at all.
mm,
Everything that you do
right.
is exciting,
Yeah.
but like yeah, majority of the thing that you do is exciting. That is something that I aim for, basically.
Mm-hmm. True. Agreed. And coming to there is also this thing, that context switching thing. Not I'm not sure that I've not delved deeper into this, but um, so my friend was saying about context switching, like how if you manage to just reduce. So context switching is, suppose you are doing 2 3 tasks at a time, then you're switching the context, you're switching okay, if I'm doing a homework right now, then I'm later on working on some project, and then later on starting, so I'm switching my context. So
Yeah,
the more you reduce your context switching, the better you get at at a particular thing. um,
yeah,
and knowing you, I've found that previously you worked with multiple things at a time, like StackOS, DapTales, and even I think that was the time when you were also working with for Web3 Conf. So
yeah. Web3 Conf and PYOR.
and yeah, yeah. And these are just the project side, right? And you definitely have your college and stuff like that. So how do you think that you worked out with that, and your experience related to this, working with multiple things at a time?
Uh, yeah. So mostly it was very difficult because I, like mentioned before, I'm not very good at management. So it was very hectic for me, and the context switch thing is something that really got to me because like once I had to, like I had a lot of tabs open, wherein in one of the tabs I was
Mm-hmm.
working on some content, and the other I was working on the reach outs. And basically when you try to juggle different like basically have these kind of context switching, then you
Mm-hmm.
even need to, like, there are instances where you actually need to think, wherein, like, you need to think, what am I working on
Right,
right
right.
now? So
Habits.
that is something, like, it takes a lot of your mental effort just to focus, right? Just to be
Mm-hmm.
focused on one particular thing. So that was something that I faced when I was working with multiple projects, and something that bothered me as well, because I felt that when I'm, like, I've always felt that when I'm, basically when I'm spread too thin, uh, I tend to do very mediocre work,
Mm-hmm.
wherein, like, the work that I do is not something that I am proud of, right?
Right.
And like, I want my work to be something that I give my 100% of,
True.
and something that actually bears results, right? And if
Yeah.
I like don't give my 100%, I feel that the result won't be satisfactory for me, and
Mm-hmm.
that is also the reason why I dropped most of the projects that I was working with, and decided to focus on Pure, because Pure
True.
was something that I felt would be the next inflection point for me, and I still want to convert this into a full time thing, and that's the reason I'm trying to focus mostly on this. And it was difficult, given the fact that, like, especially with DAPTales, I had to think a lot when I was
Mm-hmm.
dropping the project, because I was the one who reached out to the founder,
Mm-hmm.
and, like, I know him well, not
Right.
very well, but to some extent I know him well,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt very bad to just, tell him that I won't be working with him, and I
Mm-hmm.
was the one who approached, right? And just 2 months later, and I'm saying that I won't be working for you
Right.
because I want to work for another project. So I felt bad, and I wasn't actually getting results, the desired results in those 2 months. So that was something that was added on to the misery. But yeah, that was a hard call I had to take. But
तीन चमचे
yeah, I just
ताज़ा पानी में.
gathered up the courage to tell him that I can't be working for you anymore, and he was
हाँ.
pretty chill with it. He just told me that, it happens, and like, it's not, I don't need to feel guilty for it and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Right.
So yeah, that happened, and basically right now I'm trying to focus on one thing, because I feel that I want to be a person who
तीन चमचे.
provides value, right? Not just, and I feel as of now, I'm not that person who can provide a lot of value in terms of skills.
Right.
So I want to be someone who, people can reach out to, maybe if they want to get help with something, right? And I feel right now I'm not that someone. And my founder told me something very interesting, which is that, like, I was telling him that, like, I was basically telling him how I'm reaching out to family offices, which is something that I'm doing right now, and
Mm-hmm.
how, like, I'm planning my strategy. And I was telling him that one of the ways I'm thinking about is just reaching out to my connection and getting an intro. And he told me that you don't have a connection right now. And I was like, okay. Like,
Right.
I thought that I had connection with people, because I know founders,
Mm-hmm.
not a great deal of founders, but I know a few founders and few
Yeah.
VCs. Like, when I say I know them, I mean I'm connected to them on LinkedIn and Twitter, right?
Right. Right.
But they aren't my connections, and I, thought about it. Like, had I came across this concept even earlier, wherein, like, people say that, uh, in a connection, like, it doesn't matter what you think of them. What matters
Mm-hmm.
is what they think of you, right?
Right.
Because if you think about why you want a connection, it's ideally to get something done, right? It's ideally to, uh, not to sound very transactional, but, like, ideally you want to get some kind of result out of that person, right? Or you,
True.
like, results can be, maybe you get a deal, you either, maybe you get some kind of help, or you want to, ideally it can also be that you want to form some kind of relationship that with that person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a professional relationship. I'm not talking about a personal relationship, but you
Right.
just like the person, right? And, like, what I came to realize was the fact that like just because you are connected to someone on LinkedIn doesn't mean a lot. We can be
Mm,
connected to a lot of people, but if they don't think highly of you, then it doesn't matter, because
right.
you can't get anything out of them. Like, not to sound very transaction, which I am doing right now, but like if you ask for some help for uh, like if you reach out to them and ask for a help, would they be willing to help you out? That's the
Mm,
question, right? So
right.
basically, what I'm trying to do right now is just trying to be someone who can be of value to people, right? Who can add value to people. And basically what I'm trying to do is get results
Mm,
in my current work. So yeah, that was
true.
quite long, but
No, no, the content matters.
yeah.
um so lastly, let's say you are again where you started, let's say 2 years before, um and with your experience, you if you had to start over again, or to any someone who is wanting to deep dive deep dive into marketing or content and stuff, so how would you give your views or experience or learnings from the overall thing path journey?
Sure. um, I would say that what helped me a lot, which also helped me right now, is my innate curiosity, right? Like,
True.
I was interested in marketing, so I had curiosity about marketing because I was intrigued with psychology and stuff like that. So I deep dived into anything that I could get my hands on, and
Mm-hmm.
that was how I, like, discovered Twitter, how I discovered these communities, how I discovered people like Harish and Ishan and people like that. And basically all the communities that I'm part of, and all the great, like, basically where I'm at right now is due to my curiosity. So I would suggest to develop this kind of curiosity, which would help you actually to go the extra mile
Right.
when you do stuff, right? Like, uh, because, like, if you aren't curious about something, let's say if I'm not interested in, and I'm not curious about development, then I wouldn't, like, it would take a great deal of effort for me to learn something, and
Mm.
great deal of effort to read something related to development, right? But
True.
when you are really curious about something, then it's really easy for you to be interested in a lot of I'm interested in learning and going the extra mile when it comes to your
Ah,
internships and stuff like that.
Ajay,
So
exchange.
yeah, I would say firstly develop a curiosity,
Mm.
a, like, childlike curiosity in yourself, and that way, like, I would say pursue things that are just curious, that you're curious about and you feel really excited about. And especially the don'ts related to web3, I can't think of any, but I would suggest that uh, it applies to most things in general, but communities is one of the best ways for you to grow, is something that I've
True.
noticed. Like, where I'm right now is due to the communities I was part of.
Mm.
Because, like, you've heard of that expression, right? You're the average of the five people that you hang out with. And
Mm.
communities is part of that. Like, community is where you hang out, right? Where you learn. And I think communities like Blue Learn and Marketup and Product House really helped me shape who I am right now when it comes to my curiosity, and when it comes to my learning and where I'm right now. So
Yes.
yeah, I would suggest to uh, be part of communities, be part of any exciting community that you're part of, be proactive in terms of reaching out to people that you feel are interesting. And yeah, I would suggest just be really curious about something. I mean, develop this sense of curiosity. I wouldn't I'm not even sure how you can do that, but I
Mm-hmm.
guess you're like there are things that people are really curious about, right?
Yeah.
So I would just suggest that you like just take action on that and just delve deeper on that rather than trying to focus on something that you aren't curious about, because I feel that that may not really align with what your zone of genius would be. But
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just my opinion. Maybe I'll
Right.
figure it out.
Yeah. So just be curious, right?
Yeah, just be
True.
curious, and I think be part of great communities. That is how you can upskill
Yeah.
yourself.
True. Um, Truly agree. Totally agree on that. Just explore. Keep exploring. Keep being curious. And keep that child within you awake. No
Yeah.
matter how old enough you become, but um, be interested in things. Try out new things. Right.
Yep.
So yeah, we are at the end of the episode. Thank you so much, Dewasis, for joining in. It was a great pleasure knowing about and talking about various things.
Thanks, Aditya.
And welcome.
It
And
was
yeah,
great chatting.
definitely, me too, me too. And again, once again, thank you so much for your time. And I feel that um, the viewers or the listeners have gained some kind of insights and knowledge into things,
Yeah, I
and
hope so.
right, really
Or
appreciate
this
that.
would be a rant about different things.
They should another episode maybe. Cool. So yeah, let's end. Thank you so much for joining. Bye, signing off.